Kia ora and welcome. Welcome to another episode of The Leadership Lounge. I'm Katie, I'm your host. Great to be back for another episode, and I'm super excited at the moment. And I'll get into that because I'm supposed to do the preamble. I always forget. So, The Leadership Lounge, welcome, come on in. This is a place for leaders in healthcare. Whatever you're doing, whatever your role is, wherever it is that you're working, wherever in the world, whatever the part of the sector, this is a place for you to take a pause, to take a breath. Always good for me to take a breath at that point as well, because it tends to slow me down. Give myself a bit of breathing time so that I can actually speak clearly and hopefully coherently as we talk. So this is that place for your pause, reflect, fresh perspective on the work that you're doing every week. And I'm going to jump straight back to my excitement, though try not to get quite so carried away as I did. So the shops here in the UK are now, yes, getting full of Christmas stuff. And that's one thing, but it's also full of Halloween stuff. Now, and this might lose me a whole load of followers and listeners and all this kind of stuff. So just go with this, okay? Because we're all made up of multitudes. I would probably follow more of a pagan calendar acknowledgement. I think the earth in its seasons has great wisdom, can tell us a lot about a lot of things, to be honest. So while living in Aotearoa, if you follow Te Ao Māori, when we're thinking about Matariki and the start of the new year, it's perfect, right? Because it's falling into that June, July time, which is when we're in that winter time, and that time for reflection and thinking and planning ahead. And when Christmas comes in the Northern Hemisphere, it is the winter and and the new year, it's time for that inner thinking, reflection, setting new goals. But in Aotearoa, it's the middle of summer, so it never made sense. However, Christmas I can just kind of go with because you're kind of swamped, and that's just the way it is. And I never got used to a Christmas in the summer. So yes, I am actually quite excited about a Christmas in the winter. However, it's the Halloween stuff. So when we think about that is very much when we go, this is not going to turn into a podcast about the history of Halloween, by the way. Go Google it. Go look it up. However, from a pagan perspective, it is that autumnal time, and it didn't make sense in Aotearoa. So here I am, embracing autumn and getting quite excited about the fact that the celebration of Halloween is actually going to align with the seasons. I hope I've made that make sense. Anyway, I am super excited about that. Also, of note, the shops are absolutely jam-packed full of this stuff. It is like a major thing. So I'm so excited. I did tell Adam, given we're on a bit of a budget at the moment, because Adam's not yet found a job, I'm like, oh my goodness, I want to buy all this stuff. It's so exciting. So yeah, super excited. So it's this idea of getting excited about things and the energy that gives me and the ideas and the creativity and just the enthusiasm for how I am showing up is influenced by my choice to be excited. Because you could equally look at this stuff and you're like going, Halloween's not till the end of October and we're just in the middle of September and Christmas is months away. Why are you getting excited about that? So, do I agree with the over-commercialisation and the materialistic stuff that goes on with this? No, I do not. However, I can choose to be excited even if I don't go and buy everything. I can choose to enjoy those moments and the lead up to things. And that's a choice I make. So much of how we look at what is going on around us and in the world of work, so much is going on around us. But there are moments where you can choose how you decide to look at that. So in some respects, this is a lot about how we can reframe and look at things from a different perspective, which is what a lot of my conversations and a lot of my work is about. But an awful lot of this is about our choices. Because we do choose how we want to view stuff, how we're going to show up. Sometimes those choices are not intentional. Sometimes we can be swept away with distractions or emotions. And it's why I spend at the start of any meeting or session or workshop just allowing that space to check in with yourself. Because in the rush of what we do every day and just trying to keep on top of the work and just keep up with the constant demands and ongoingness and the constant firefighting, we rarely stop to take a moment to check in with how we're feeling. So if that has sounded like what your week, day, whatever has been like or is usually like, take this moment. Just again, take one of those big breaths and go, yeah, how am I actually feeling right now? There's a lot of different ways that you can do that. You can use a bit of a scale on a 1 to 10. And this would be often the tactic I would use with Adam when he was going through chemo and radiation. I would say, okay, what's your score? And he would wrap it all up into it's a 4 today or it's a 7 today. And that would help decide what we needed to do next or on that day. So you can give yourself a simple score. Sometimes it can be as simple as maybe an image of like a battery. How full is your battery right now? And one of my favourite things that I use at the start of sessions is one of those little funny check-in pictures. And I know I've talked about these before, this idea of on a scale of sheep, where are you today? And there's all these funny pictures of sheep, and you can decide what best resonates with how you're feeling. And then, as I've often talked about, the emotional culture deck, you can use actual prompts or cards to help put words and describe and name the emotion that it is that you're feeling. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do this check-in with yourself, but that's your first step. That check-in with yourself about where you're at and how you're feeling. And then you have the choice. There's that great quote around that space, creating that space. This moment of pause is where you have the power to choose. And in that moment lies your freedom. So if you're feeling particularly stuck, or if you're feeling like you are being done to, which is really common right now, creating that pause is your space for freedom and choice. Now, this feels like, and could feel like, I'm ignoring all the ridiculous pressures and demands. I'm not saying this gets rid of all of those. I'm not saying that this is your magic wand to make your life all perfect. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that how we choose to approach a problem influences the problem. What was the quote? I did my notes for this, and I was like, there's some quotes. I can't remember what they were. And I know they always start coming to me when I actually start talking. This is why this really is just a conversation. I really feel I should have a friend here Googling the quotes as I'm starting to come up, and I could do some kind of like magic arm waving around what quote I'm trying to sum up. I think it's a Henry Ford one, but again, I will, who knows? I could be making that up as well. Whether you think you're right or whether you think you're wrong, then you're right. Well, you're correct. I've lost that one completely. But the point of the quote is how we choose to view the situation. So if I'm going to go out and have a terrible day, I'll have a terrible day. If I'm thinking this is going to be a great meeting, it's going to be a great meeting. So the way that we choose to approach a situation or think about the situation influences the situation. I had one, I will remember this quote, I think. I had one of those little quote postcards that I would keep in my office, and I remember taking it out to a consultant who had walked onto the ward and was getting quite grumpy and uppity with some of the staff and getting quite stroppy, to be quite honest. And I tapped them on the shoulder and just said, hey, just have a look at this. And what it said on the postcard was, amazing things will happen today if you choose not to be a miserable cow. This idea of our attitude and our intention and our choices influencing the way we're interacting with other people, as well as some potential outcomes. So our choices matter. You start with noticing where you're at and deciding, okay, so how do I need to show up and what do I need to be able to do that? Sometimes it could be a glass of water, a nap, walking away, leaning in, getting courage, getting help, whatever it is. So it's this idea of choice. And as I was making my notes, as I do, and thinking about, okay, what is on my mind? What do I think is important to share this week? It circled back down, ironically, to this idea of circles of control, which has come up in a number of the weekly emails and definitely one of the podcasts in the past as well. This idea of our circle of control. When the enormity of what is going on in the world and then the enormity of what's going on in healthcare, it can feel like you are powerless and everything is just happening and you have no choices. But when it boils down to what you do have control over and you start to really concentrate on that, then that grows. one of the most common things people talk to me about whenever they're describing their work world and what it feels like is this wish to be less reactive. They spend their whole days in firefighting mode rather than doing some of the work that they want to do. This is common conversation. And it reminded me of one of the very, was it early podcasts? It was back in July, because I've checked. I don't know if that was early or not, but it was in July. I talked about this idea of firefighting and what do we need to do if we want to stop firefighting. And it's one of my favourite episodes, probably because I got into quite an interesting bit of research around what wildfire fighters actually do and how they prevent fires. And I could link some of those ideas and concepts with the world of working in healthcare. So I enjoyed that episode. I'll make sure I'll pop a link to that episode in the show notes to go and remind yourself or re-listen to it or listen to it for the first time if you're new here. Welcome. Great to have you. But the idea in this space around being less firefighting and more proactive is that it's actually less heroic. There's less excitement in it. And as much as you care to say that you hate this constant reactivity, we do get that drive, and I'm with you, I'm there too. I love it when there's some sort of sudden urgent crisis and I need to jump into action. It gives us that adrenaline, it gives us that energy. So there's less of that excitement and heroism involved in being proactive. One of my amazing colleagues that I've worked with over the years called it boring magic. It's all the stuff that we do, that very foundational level that we get right, that allows magic to happen. And actually it gets neglected because it falls into the bucket of a bit boring. But that's what we need to embrace and choose to be proactive about if we want to get out of firefighting mode. So it's about more about planning and organising. But it's this idea of investing in the future, in your future, and the things that you can do that can enable that. So for some people, that might be meal prepping and making sure that you've got all the food or your lunch is ready, whatever it is, to make your life easy. It's an investment for the future. It's quite dull sitting there. I did it the other week. I made a whole lot of breakfasts up for the week, stacked in the fridge. It was fantastic as the week rolled out. I was so excited that I had done it. For other people, it's those activities that help their mental well-being. So whether that be mindfulness, meditation, journaling, those activities where you're being very intentional about that time in, as the mental health, the Healthy Mind Platter would remind you, that space of time in. For other people, it could be coaching or getting a mentor so that you're actually choosing to invest in that to help you grow, develop, build the skills for whatever situation you're in. So there's a wealth of things that we can all choose to do that are investing in ourselves, but investing in the work that we are doing, but primarily investing in this space of being more proactive, less reactive. So that was some of the key things that I remember and pulled out of that previous episode. So there we go. That's where my excitement took us today. So I've just got in from shopping. That's why I was super excited and it jumped straight to mind. So if you are in a place where you're trying to avoid the materialism and the very early placement of Christmas and Halloween stuff, I'm sorry that I'm really excited about it. But the message here is that we can choose our attitude. We can choose and set some intentions about how we want to feel. And if you want to feel proactive, or if you want to feel more in control, or if you want to feel more organised, asking yourself then, okay, why does that matter? What do I need to do to feel more organised? This is not going to come natural around the excitement I have about Halloween coming up. What do I need to do to feel more organised? What do I need to do so that I have that sense of control over the next week? And that's when you start to realise that you do have more choices. Now, my theory about this and why it's a subject I come back to quite often is that the challenges and pressures within the healthcare sector, wherever you are working in it, are not going away anytime fast, is not a silver bullet solution that is going to be offered by anyone. And again, we've talked in the past around how this is continuously linked to politics, and that's one of the stumbling blocks. And yes, we can talk about those things and we can write letters and we can campaign on those things so that there is a change. But I do believe that creating the environment where it is an amazing place to work, whatever your job, and that creates a space where people that need care get the experience and the care in the way that they want it and the way that they need it. That's going to be done from the ground up. So it is the choices that we all make every day. The groundswell and the number of people that are working in healthcare is amazing, and there are good people out there doing amazing things every day. So it's those choices, choosing to see those good things and to celebrate and to acknowledge those good things. Okay, you can tell I got quite excited about that one this week. I will wrap on up. Thank you again for listening to another episode of The Leadership Lounge. It is great to have you here listening along. Thank you for following along, sharing, liking. It'd be great. Just click a like button, click a follow, send it to somebody else. Drop a comment. I believe you can drop comments now. And don't forget subscribing to the weekly newsletter, The Bright Spot, that's in your inbox that did, have to confess, I didn't forget to do last week. It didn't get done. I am still, as I've been describing, getting into the flow of this new world that I'm now in and this transition and this adjustment. And I am practising what I preach. And I'm good at this because I have made the mistakes in the past, practising self-compassion over these things. I've talked about when I forgot to record an episode of the podcast. Same thing. Practising self-compassion over this. And actually the world is not going to end if I don't send an email out. And I'm going to think about ways that I can continue with this, my flow of work and the working week that I have. And that's my good reminder, actually, that I had not actually made as I started recording this, that I get to choose that. I get to choose the planning and what I do and how I do it and how I want to feel through the week so that can enable me to do the things that I want to do. Oh, okay. So on that note, thanks again for listening. You take care. Thank you for all that you are doing when you are showing up, for making the magic happen where it is in sometimes some of the most dire and challenging situations, for the smile that you bring. Thank you so much. Those smiles make all the difference. The little things make all the difference. So thank you for doing those. You take care, and I'll be back. Talk to you again next week.